So as you know, in the awareness session last week, we had a look at how an incident's reported with the incident reporting form. And we gave you a brief overview of the BCP tool. So today's session is going to focus on basically demonstrating to you how to use the BCP tool for the stages that come after the initial report has been sent in. And then, as we mentioned last session, in the new academic year, there'll then be an opportunity for yourselves to get hands-on with the tool and try it out, and we'll be doing some whole organisation testing as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. Let's start off on this SharePoint page that I showed you briefly last session. As I mentioned, obviously the incident reporting form is accessed here at the moment. What I wanted to show you on here briefly is that we've got a link, or we've got a couple of links actually, to actually access the tool. So we've got one up on the quick links at the top, and then the QR code and the web address down here as well, linked up. So this is one way of actually getting to the BCP tool. And then we've got here some guidance on how to, I can't actually open this at the moment, I need to change it so I can make it large. But this PDF here explains the a shortcut to the tool onto your Teams, and we also recommend adding a web browser bookmark as well, just for extra ways to access it quickly, basically, so you can get to it in a sort of emergency situation. So the main way that we recommend accessing the tool is with that shortcut on your Microsoft Teams. So I'm not going to go through the process of how to actually add the shortcut, but I'll just show you what it will look like. So it would be one of these shortcuts on the Teams menu at the side. Got it here somewhere. There we go. So it just opens up the tool within Teams as a sort of quick way to get to it. And as I mentioned, the alternative is a bookmark on your browser, so that you can just open it from there quickly as well. So what I'll show you now is the initial process of reviewing an incident once the report has come in, and approving or rejecting it, depending on whether it needs escalating to a full BCP incident or not. So what happens once somebody's submitted a report on the Microsoft form is every member of the BCP team will receive an email to say that and the details are automatically sent here to the BCP tool. So everybody can review it on the tool, every member of the BCP team, and then it needs to be approved or rejected by one member of SMT, and then any other member of the BCP team can be the second approver. So on the dashboard of the BCP tool, the first button we've got here in the top left is reports, and that's where the new reports go into once they're submitted on the form. So when you open up reports, you'll see the incident that's been sent through, and you click it and you get the description of what's happened, and the details that were sent through on the form, basically. And then what we're seeing here is whether anybody has approved or rejected it yet. So we've got one green dot because this is Luke. So Luke has approved this incident already, and then I can be the second approver by pressing approve report.
Sarah, what do we mean by approve? Is that sort of acknowledged, or is it that we're confirming we've taken some action, or?
No, it's to confirm that it is an incident that needs the business continuity plan to be actioned for. So the two people that are going to approve or reject would need to make a decision as to sort of have a look at the details and make a decision as to whether it's a severe enough incident that's having enough of an impact on the organisation to be a business continuity issue or not. So if it is, you'd then approve it and it becomes an active incident on the system.
I see. So if it's something minor that can be dealt with in other ways, we would just reject.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so if I approve then, so I'll be the second approver because we've got one approval already. What that then does...
Could I just mention something, Sarah?
Yeah.
Thank you. So just going off what you were asking, Kath, basically the incident form, okay, can be completed by anybody. So imagine someone's written on there saying, I've lost my stapler. If this system just immediately kicked into action without any sort of due diligence, potentially we've got automated messaging, SMS, and you name it, going all over the place. So there has to be a sort of safeguarding step, if that makes, not safeguarding is the wrong word, but almost like fail-safe thing. If it's completely irrelevant to this, then obviously you're not going to get, we're not going to kick the tool into action, because this has the potential to obviously be pushing messaging out, learners, staff, you name it. Now, the other reason that there's a requirement there for 2 approvers is purely going back to the basic sort of nuclear key thing, whereas potentially you could have, for whatever reason, inadvertently, somebody could be going, yeah, that's fine, whereas it might not be. So it just needs two people to say, yes, it is something that we're going to escalate to be an actual business continuity issue that needs to be resolved.
Okay. Thanks, Fred. So what happens to that incident then once it's been approved is it goes to the next stage, which is to configure it. I'm going to hand you over to Luke for that process. Shall I stop sharing there?
There we go. Should be able to see me now. So I'm not going to go straight into the incident creation process. What I'm going to do is just talk you through the building blocks and some of the communication templates and some other things that you might be interacting with on the actual tool itself. So I said last week that the building blocks are supposed to be sort of modular tools that kind of piece together, work seamlessly, and to be used as components to build the incident itself when a report has been made and it's had the 2 approvals. So I'll just go through each of them. And if you have any questions, feel free to just speak out or put a hand up in Teams or anything like that. I'll try and keep an eye out. They're mostly straightforward, but if you need to know anything extra, just, yeah, go ahead and ask. So I'll cover some of the ones that I did last week as well, but I'll just start and go through. So the first one is teams, or tasks, sorry. These have been taken straight from the BCP document plan that we had access to. So these are what we managed to extrapolate from that document. So these range from just contacting emergency services to first aid, accounting for people, just everything from urgent, urgent tasks to low priority tasks, everything in between. And what these are components that would fit into task lists, which I'll go into in a second as well. So this is all very customizable. You can add, delete, edit, whatever you want. So let's say I came in here, I was part of the BCP team, and I thought, okay, something is missing. I would hit the add task button in the top left. Really easy. I'd give it an urgency level, whatever that urgency level might be. I'd give it a task ID, or I'd recommend to give it a task ID, otherwise it would just be a random string of letters and numbers. And the task description. So that's just obviously what needs to be done to complete the task. Like I say, really straightforward and easy. And then you just hit create task at the end of that. Similarly, you can see that there's 2 buttons on each row of the task. The blue one lets you edit. So I can see here, I can edit the urgency and the description. I can publish them. And then I can also go ahead and delete them freely. I won't, you know, all of the building blocks have delete options, so I won't go into that. And I'll just quickly open them and show you what you can do and just show you that they are editable, and it's all up to whoever's using the tool itself. So I'll go into task lists to show you that the tasks fit into the lists. See here, we've got a long list of tasks, task lists. So these are lists comprising of the tasks that we just saw, and these are supposed to be used within other building blocks, which I'll show you in a second. I know it's a bit hard without proper context, but these can be selected freely during the instant creation process, and they'll all sort of merge together to create one big list of tasks that need to be gone through and finished to bring the instance to resolution at the end. So if I just go ahead and click the view on one of these, and it will open. And then what I'll also do is just show you how you'd go about making a task list as well. You can see here, this is comprised of some of the tasks that we just saw. So this is task list set of tasks that you'd assume that need to be carried out if there's a loss of a key staff member. So you have all of these, and they range from urgent to low, like I said before. You can delete them and so on. And then similarly, you can go in and edit, which I'll just brush by for now, but you get the idea. Similarly, on the left-hand side, you can click Create List, and this will bring you to the task list creation page. This is also straightforward. So you've got the tasks on the left-hand side, which is being populated from the tasks that we saw earlier. You just hit the plus icon, and they'd move in to the list on the right side, and then you'd have the title of them, so you can see what you've added and what the list is currently comprised of. And then you can delete them by hitting the X on the right side of that box as well. Give it a name and description, create list. Relatively straightforward. Does anyone have any questions about what I've covered so far, or is that okay? Cool. So I'll just move along top to the bottom. Regions, really easy. Just regions where we might have an office based. I think we have most of them covered, so chances are you won't be needing to add a new location, but you can see location name, contact number, and the region that it's located in. So you can see we've got Bangor here, north, and then a phone number attached to it. Go into staff. So staff are important to be listed here because the staff that are in here are staff that can be assigned to an incident to help resolve. So if the staff aren't listed in here, you can't assign them to the instance themselves, and you can't make teams out of the staff that aren't listed here. So what you do is you'd come into this page. If there's someone missing that you needed to include in the team, by the way, this doesn't necessarily mean they have access to the app. It just means that they'll be included in that roster on the Microsoft team, and also be contacted through email and everything else that the tool might be wanting to communicate with this person. So you'd go in. You can see I already went in here, but what you do is it would meet you with something like this. You just type in an email address, and then email, and then little picture to show that you've got the right person, add user, and that would add the user to the staff, ready to be made into a team. You can also sort by the role that they have within the app, but it's not necessarily important. So I've just jumped into the Teams panel now, and similarly to tasks into task lists, this is staff into teams. So teams comprised of the modular stuff. So if I jump into, let's say, digital, you can see that right now the digital team is comprised of me, Sarah, Riddy, and Llewellyn. Probably wouldn't be too mandatory if an incident did occur, but here we are. And then you can delete them and add them and remove freely. Same with the task lists. You can hit the button on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you can just add people freely, give the team a name, and then the team has been made. Okay, just going to jump into severity levels. So hit the button for that. Severity levels are severity levels are different to the urgency levels that we have on the tasks. So urgency is specifically just for tasks, and that is the order in which you're supposed to complete the tasks to bring the incident to a resolution. Severity are modular bits of just declaring, well, the severity of the disaster. And what these are, they just have a small name, severity level, and these have an associated task list and an assumed team that would be required of the incident to bring it to closure. So let's say we have, I'll jump into it. Okay, so let's assume we have an incident which has been labeled as a critical severity. What this severity means is that if this was selected, we'd have a default assigned task list and a default team. And what that is the task list that we'd assume would be required to be completed in the event of a critical incident, and that would be assigned to the incident creation process when you're going through those steps of declaring an incident has happened, similarly to a team. But these aren't necessarily mandatory. You can disable these during the process, or you can disable these within the severity level itself. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's just to give kind of an extra step of automation for varying degrees of severity within disasters themselves. Does anyone have any questions about that? I feel like I probably could have explained it better. Okay. Same for everything else. If you felt like a new severity level needed to be made, you jump in here and you'd declare it. Right now we have severity levels 1 through 5, and I doubt you'd need to make a new one, but in the case that was necessary, you can do that here. I'll just show you. You can select the tasks that we have available and the teams that we have available as well. So I'm just going to jump into, actually I'll do services next. This is really straightforward. These are just services that we predict could be affected in the event of a disaster occurring within a premises. So let's say, maybe it's flooding, and then electricity could be affected. We'd assume that electricity would be affected. And what this means is that when it's selected, it'd go through the incident creation process, and this is just a thing for us to track. And then it would record the time and date at which electricity was operable again. So again, just another modular piece to add into the incident. And again, you can add them freely, edit them as you need to, and everything else good like that. Going to jump to the disasters panel now. Disasters are kind of, it's like a combination of most of the important building blocks. So these are lists of disasters that have occurred or could occur. And the point of this is to have the best severity level, the best team, and the best task list automatically assigned depending on the disaster that happens. So if I jump into, let's say we have complete loss of power, we have that severity level high. So we're on the complete loss of power disaster list right now, and we can see on the right hand side we have the assumed list of services that may be affected if this happened. So you can see here possibly teaching and learning would be affected, business support would be affected, and those are ticked. So if this disaster was selected, this would go through the incident creation process, and like I said before, all trackable and archivable depending on when they became operational again. So we have some of the modular building blocks that I mentioned before. We have the severity classification. The severity classification has that default task list and that default team associated with it. So by selecting high, we'd have those two components pushed through to the disaster when it was selected. And then we also have an additional task list depending on the disaster that has occurred, because obviously a lot of the disasters share a similar severity level. So this is just a way of specializing this disaster template depending on the disaster that's occurred. And again, you can create them freely, set the severity level, disaster name, description, default task list, and the services that have been affected. Are there any questions for any of those? Everything I'm about to move on to is slightly different. Okay. Again, place for storing resources. So this would be, currently it's mostly empty, but this is a place where email templates would hold attachments potentially. So you'd set these in the email templates page, and then they'd be pushed through to any emails, you know, just as normal email attachments work. This is straightforward as well. Just drag and drop or click to add, and then just add the resource, and it's stored within the app. Okay, moving away from some of the building blocks, I'm just going to quickly look at some of the communication templates now. Again, chances are you won't be using these, but if you feel like there's an email template missing, it's just best to know how it works, I suppose. Okay, just reset these fields. Okay, so this is a bit different to everything else. So how these work is you compartmentalize the email by adding blocks by pressing the add block button. And you do these for as many paragraphs you need. And this is just to separate information and kind of make it a bit more tangibly easier to digest within the app, hopefully. So you can kind of separate paragraphs by topic or talking points or anything that you need to cover. And how this works is that you'd write your email usually, and then you'd fill the paragraph boxes on the right hand side with the content tags that you see on the left. So let's say I wanted to include the instant title when I'm pushing this email template out. What I would do is I would write title over here, and what that would do, we would replace the title tag with the instant title, similarly to the other tags right now. So if you wanted to give the contact email of the manager, you'd put the appropriate tag in and everything else that is relevant. So if I go ahead and open one of these other templates, just so you can get an idea of how it might look, let's go for instant brief. You can see here we've got kind of a bit of an instant brief email template going, and you might see some HTML tags in here as well. That's because it is supported if you felt like you wanted to use that, but it's not necessary. It's just good for kind of structuring and formatting of the email itself. So you can see on the second block, I have title, disaster, severity, date, and location, and this will pull the information from the incident itself and push it into the email. And you can add the attachments from the resources page that I just showed everyone. So at the moment, the resources page is a little bit empty, but you can add them, remove them if you want, and I'll just be sent as an attachment. And you can move these by just hitting the up and down key on the right hand side and delete them as you see fit. Does anyone have any questions on that, or is that all okay? No problem. Okay. And similar thing to SMS, I won't go too deep into it, but it works very similarly. This doesn't have content blocks, but you just write the SMS, put the tags in, and then they'd replace it as necessary as well. Okay, I think that's it for the middle panels. I'm just going to jump into the communication groups that you might be looking into. So communication groups are important if there are specific teams that you need to set up that you feel like might be missing from the app itself. You'd go onto the homepage, you'd hit settings and permissions, jump in here, you'd hit communication groups, and then from here you would, these are slightly empty at the moment until we get a full list of emails that we need. So you'd come in here, you can create a communication group, and then you can add the emails and the phone numbers of whoever you need to be contacted within this group. And then when you make them in this list, you can access them from your instant creation, your instant management panel, or just the instant creation panel, I think, because it will be pulling the information from the instant itself. And you can see by hitting the buttons in the top right, you can swap between the emails and the phone numbers, and then to add them, you just come down here and add email or number, and then hit the add button, and then it'll be pushed into this list. And then when you go to use the communication group, depending on the contact method chosen, it would pull the list of numbers or the list of emails and send those communication templates off. There is guidance as well. I'd say necessarily no one would be touching this. This is just for us to control what guidance is available on each page. You'll see top right, most pages have this button, and what this is, it's specific Word documents filled with instructions on how to use that specific page. So there's specific instructions on every single button on the page. If you do need that additional support, just hit that and you'll be able to download it freely. Okay, I'm going to move on to the instant configuration. So this is a bit of a lengthy process, but it's different from everything else. So this is using all of those building blocks and potentially communication groups that we just spoke about. So change the topic. And like I say, if you need to ask anything, just feel free. Sorry, let me go back a minute. When a report has been made, you'd have two approvals, as Sarah went over before. So you can see here, we've got two reports that have had two approvals from the BCP team, or whoever else is mandatory to be approving these. You'd go into the configure instant panel, and you can see once they have the two approvals that show up in this report, and you'd go ahead and hit the button on the right hand side, and you'd begin the instant creation process. Just gonna have a drink of water 1 minute. Okay, so this is a bit of a process. There'll be a lot of text on the screen and a lot of buttons to be pressing, but I promise when you're using it, it's not as doesn't feel as congested as it might look. So this is just for the generic information. So the title, the instant title that you want to be given, and this will be pushed into Teams, so it's important that it's relevant to whatever has happened. You can leave the instant ID blank unless you want a specific ID to be referenced within any storage tables that we have. The date of occurrence is usually populated by the report, so you can usually leave that alone. The instant reporter, that's also populated by the report that has been given, but if you want to change that, that's also editable. And you can also change the instant creator, but this is usually populated by your email if you're going through this process yourself. So most of the stuff on this page you don't need to touch. I probably recommend bulking out the description slightly once you have a better idea of what's happened, because that'll probably be quite short because that's also pulled from the report as well, from whoever's made that report. So I'll just move on to the next step by hitting the right arrow or the right chevron. So this is where we get into some of the building blocks I've just went over and how they work within this. So let's say, what was this? Prolonged loss of electricity, okay. So because we've got loss of power, I'd go into the disaster list and I'd search for loss of power. So let's go for complete loss of power. And you can see now that's automatically changed the severity classification to high. And that's ticked some of the services that are associated with that disaster. So you can see that incomplete loss of power, by default, room hire, teaching and learning, business support, and workstations or department access, those are ticked within that disaster building block. So those choices are now pushed into here. And that's all done for you. So you mostly don't need to worry. What you will need to probably look at is the affected location, and you'll just need to choose where the incident has occurred. You can see down here that the severity information has been pushed from that severity classification, so you've got some details on that as well. And also just the information on the disaster that you've chosen is here as well, and that should all be pushed into the template or into the incident panel when you've completed this process. Again, moving on to the next panel. So here we've got the tasks and task lists. So this is a big conjugation of all the associated task lists that we have with the disasters and potential severity levels. So you can see here, you can choose to include them or ignore them completely if you feel like they don't fit properly. So you can see at the top, include disaster assigned task list. So the loss of power task list is assigned to the disaster of complete loss of power. It's probably a better way of phrasing that. The loss of power task list is by default within the disaster template. So that has now been included in this incident creation process. But if you feel like the tasks within loss of power don't fit properly, you can just untick this button and they won't be included anymore. And similarly to the task list that has been assigned to the severity level by default, uncheck the checkbox and that'll be taken out of the tasks and task lists as well. But you can just, if you just wanted to get rid of these entirely and just do this all from scratch, you can do that as well. So let's say, I'll just retick these for now. So let's say I'm going with the default assigned task lists and I wanted to assign more task lists. I'd refer to the bottom left list, and this has all of the task lists that we saw in the components page. So let's just tick something random. Let's go for loss of heating. What this will do is it'll account for all of the tasks within that list and remove them from the additional tasks box on the right hand side, which are just a separated list of tasks that are different from the lists themselves. So if there's specific tasks that you need to add, you'd go into here and just add them and remove them freely. And like I say, these would all be conjugated into the incident panel itself at the end. So just move forward. Again, building blocks mentioned earlier, the severities have a team associated with it. For this specific severity level, we have the business continuity team as a default on it. You can choose to remove it or have it in. In this case, I'm just going to remove it for now. And the incident leader, by default, should just choose your email when you're going through this process. And then if you know the specific team that you need, you'd select the team, and then that would tick all of the additional members in this panel over here. Or you just do it from scratch and you can add the teams as necessary for the members that have been added to the app, as I mentioned before. So just tick and remove as necessary. Okay, and this is the final page of what you need to be selecting and editing yourself. So what you can do from here is you can use one of those email templates that we spoke about earlier. Depending on what's most relevant, you'd probably use the incident brief template. And if you wanted to send this email notification to your team, you just tick this box, and then the email template would be sent off with all of the relevant data replaced. All the tags within that template replaced with the relevant data from the incident from all of the selections that you've just made. And this is recommended for most of the incidents, but you can create a Microsoft Teams channel, and everyone on your team will be pulled into that Teams channel, as well as all the relevant information from the team itself, from the incident itself. So all of the services and tasks and description of the incident will all be pushed into the Teams channel. So it's there and accessible to everyone. You can set a target resolution date. So by default, this is a week from now. But if you need to select and change this, you can. You can schedule a Microsoft Team meeting. So by default, it's the same day that you're making the report or making the incident. You'd select the starting time and the end time, and that would create the meeting and then invite everyone relevant into the team meeting for you. You can also set up some routine reminders. So this will just send pings into the Teams channel just to remind you that this needs to be resolved if you feel like that was necessary for your team. You can choose these 2 to 48 hours, and these will just go until you resolve the incident. So finally, you'll just see an overview page of everything that you've selected, just to make sure that this is all relevant to the incident, and just to make sure that this is all correct and you're not publishing something by mistake. And I think that is it for the incident creation process. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions about that. Or is everyone okay? Cool. Okay. So I mentioned the Teams channel gets created. I'll just show you briefly what that might look like. Give me one moment. Okay. So when a team has been made, this is just a demo instant for now, but just so you get the idea of what it might look like to someone who's not a part of the BCP team and doesn't have access to the app. This will be just where you communicate with everyone, and this is where your team will report when services are back online or they've completed their task. And any changes you make within the incident, which I'll go over in a second, will all be logged to this channel. I know I mentioned some of it last week. But yeah, so all of the relevant data, so the severity level, location, description, all of the tasks and their urgency levels, description and name, all listed here for all of the people in the team to see, as well as the services at the bottom. And like I just mentioned, when things are logged off in the app itself, they'll be pushed to this Teams channel, and people will just be able to see when something changes. So you can see just here, there's an instant change. Sarah's marked certain tasks as completed by me. And this will be similar to all of the changes that I made within the app itself. And this is just to try and keep some automated communication between the leader and their team. Okay, last thing within the tool, I'm just going to jump into what the active instance might look like and how you might use these panels once you've gone through that lengthy process of configuring the incident and you know it's all set up and you're ready to go and kind of just start looking at what needs to be done. So main page, left panel, incident management, jump into active instance, you'd find the relevant one. I imagine there'd only be one in here at most at any given point. So let's jump into the top one. You can see here, incident control panel. You can see in the middle, we've got some short information just to see at a glance. Down here, we'll have the resolution target. This will usually show you how many days you have left until it's due and so that resolution target we set during the process, it'll work through the date from whenever you're viewing the incident. On the right hand side, we've got some of the logged updates and changes. So this, like I said, these are all the changes that are made by the incident leader when they're configuring some of the panels that I'm just about to go into. So any changes they make and anything that is relevant that might need to be logged, that's all logged, archivable, so we can go back and view at a later date. So I'll start on the left. I'll go from the top. So I'll have a look at view incident. The view incident page is just some very generic information that you selected during the incident creation process. So stuff you've probably seen and don't really need to access, but let's say it's resolved and you need to go in and see who was the reporter and who was created by and all of the templates that were selected. Like 6 months from now, you go into here to see all the relevant data. Okay, jump into the Manage Tasks button. Just a second. Okay, so seen it a dozen times. This is another task list, another set of tasks, not a task list. So this is the aggregated tasks from all of the task lists that you would have selected during the incident creation process and all of the individual tasks that you decided to add alongside those task lists as well. So what they do is form one big task list for you to work through, and you can sort them by the urgency level. So if you want to make sure all the urgent ones are done first, just hit the sort button on the top and you work down from urgent to high all the way down to low. And what you can do from here is, if you have someone on your team that you specifically want to assign, you'd go into the assign button, and I'd recommend writing their email down in here. And what this will do is just push a little ping to whoever has been assigned this task. And what they can do is they can cross-reference the name of the task, see what they need to do, and then they can communicate through the Teams channel when it's completed, so the leader can then come back into this instant control panel and hit the completion button up here. So it's a little slider button, you'd hit it as the leader, and let's say the person that you assigned the task has completed it. So let's say, for example, I've said into the Teams channel that I've completed this task. The leader would come in here and confirm who's done it, and then this would be marked as complete, and this change would be logged into those instant changes that I just showed you that were on the right hand side panel. Again, all for archiving, so the date, time saved, who it's done by, just so responsibilities are all logged. And if you do miss anything on the instant creation process, you can just come up here and add tasks freely or remove them. Okay. And you should be able to see, yeah, just on the right hand side, because I pushed that update, it's now saying that I completed the task, and digital essay, which is the email I'm using right now, has marked it as being completed by me. So I'll just jump into the affected services button. Similarly to the tasks, there's no completing user or user or person that you need to declare as letting you know that something is operating. But all you do is, when something is operating that previously wasn't, you find the name of it. Say the toilet facilities aren't operable. You'd go in here and you just click operating, and the date and time that that's operating will be tracked. And if you make a mistake, you can just mark it as offline again. Super simple. So if you miss any team members when you're going through that process, you can add them just by typing the email at the bottom and just hitting add. This will automatically put them into the Teams channel, invite them to the meeting, and anything else relevant that is specific to the incident. You can also remove them as freely as you want. So those only work with staff members that are listed within the app, like I mentioned earlier. So just make sure that the email is all correct and it should be all okay. Just jump down into the Manage Logs button. What you can do in here is if there's a report or something that you need to publish to the incident that doesn't quite match up with any of the other panels or any of the automated logging or tracking that we have in place, you'd come here, you would hit the plus button, you'd write whatever has occurred during the resolution process or whatever you're doing that needs to be logged here. And then this will be logged into the system, and then you also have the option to send this to the Teams channel that you've created, so everyone in your team sees the log at the same time that you're logging this into the system itself. Okay, and this is how you use some of the communication templates that I showed earlier. So let's say I want to send an email out, and let's say I wanted to send out an email that the incident has been resolved. I would select the business continuity incident resolved email template, and all of the information is there for me. I don't need to worry about what I'm writing, missing anything out. Everything relevant should be included, and all of the information from this incident will be pushed into the incident email template. So like I said earlier, description, title, and anything else relevant, the location of the incident. So you'd select it, you choose the destination, and you'd go, let's say you want to send it to all staff, you select that, send the email out, everyone would have that. Or if you just wanted to send it to your team, do the same. Or if you needed to, you weren't sure how the email would look, hit preview email and it'll send it to your own email. And at the end, you'd hit the manage incident button at the bottom, and then you just resolve it and then finish it off, and it would be complete. You'd close the Teams channel, and that'll be it. And then all of this is archived and logged for the future. And hopefully we have an extensive list of everything that happened, changes, date, time, and nothing is missed. Okay, I think that's it for the tool. So I think now me and Sarah can answer any questions that anyone has. Yeah, hopefully that all made sense.
Can I just add something quickly about the manage logs section, Luke?
Yep.
Just to say, it's probably I would recommend trying to keep a sort of like a story line here of everything that's happening in relation to the incident. So something we have to do with the emergency services system with Mountain Rescue is we keep a log there of every sort of phone call or conversation or decision that's made, so that you have a full sort of story then of what happened and in what order. So if it ever needs to be looked back on for legal purposes or any reason, really, you've got a detailed narrative then of what happened and who did what, obviously, as well. So example, I'd log phone call with in our case, maybe phone call with HSE, an estates manager. Ground floor has been deemed safe to re-enter, but the lower floor will remain off limits, kind of thing. That's something you wouldn't capture within the task lists that we've got, but is important to have logged there as one of the decisions that's been made in the process of the incident. So just wanted to add that. Kath, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I mean, just a comment, first of all. I know I said the other day, but just acknowledging the huge amount of work that's gone into this. It's such a detailed tool. And I think, if we are in the unfortunate situation of having to deal with an incident, this will really guide us through exactly what we need to do. So thank you for all your work that's gone into it. It's the first thing I wanted to say. The next point was really not a question, it may be a question for me really. It's just that whole, what's the trigger for using this? Obviously the report, an incident report is the official trigger, but at what point, I'm just thinking there are lots of things that happen on a day-to-day basis. So like aid, for example, systems, systems not working, or in the winter, snow, snow disrupting attendance in the office, those sorts of things that we would deal with on a day-to-day basis. What's the trigger for that actually being sort of channeled through the business continuity tool? And I'm not necessarily asking you to answer this, Sarah. I think it's probably for SMT and the marketing and comms group to have a think about it. Is the reporting incident form open to everyone so that anyone can flag up what they think is an incident, and it's just that it's the bit that comes before this tool really that I think we perhaps still have a bit of work to do around sort of establishing what do we want to channel through this, and am I making any sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's probably not, that's not necessarily something that you need to be doing, but maybe it's sort of conversations that we need to be having as a wider team.
There is some considerations for when something should be escalated to the tool that were taken straight from the document itself. So they are on the tool itself. I just didn't get around to showing them.
No, that's fine.
I think it's, so what it says is it would be escalated to this point when a disaster that prevents organization from carrying on its usual operations at normal pace for more than 48 hours, or a major event occurs during an off-site educational visit somewhere. And then I think it's also if it's uncertain when resolution is going to be for an incident after a certain amount of time, that's when you'd probably elevate it to this level.
Yeah.
And it can always be de-escalated then and shut down as a BCP incident.
Yeah.
Red?
Yeah, I've got two things. First, just going off that, I think that potentially the tool could support anything, but and the incident report form could be used to capture anything, but I think there needs to come the bit around the approving, is this something that we want to use the tool for, yes or no, is perhaps where those sort of decisions and conversations need to arise, because as you can see, there's quite a lot going on here. It's obviously got it can facilitate all of this automation, pushing messages out and everything else. If, for example, you've lost the key to Bryn Mannau, is it, that's going to be resolved in 20 minutes because you called someone up to the locksmith or something to sort that out? Is there going to be a need to go through the entirety of this? Those are the sort of decisions that perhaps we need to touch on in marketing comms or with OMT, Kath, I think. There just needs to be a decision around what are we seeing as, worthy perhaps isn't the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Sort of what triggers it, doesn't it? And I get, they're sort of extreme examples, aren't they? Losing the key, but it's those things that I'm just thinking, like aid that you're dealing with all the time, but the system being down for the whole of the day, that sort of thing. Is that something that would go through this process?
Usually we'd like to say it's a bit of a, the planned maintenance. I know the last one we had sort of went on a bit, there were other things followed, but yeah, it probably wouldn't be needing this tool because it's just waiting for the resolution. It's going to be resolved in sort of an hour or two's time. So by the time you've gone through the process, it'll be resolved. But it's when it doesn't then get resolved and it moves on, then when do we invoke?
I think that in that example, Aid, you've mentioned something that your team or a specific external, say a contractor or something, is going to sort that out. This tool itself It's more about that collaborative. We've got lots of people involved, internal or external. Everybody needs to be, it's more suited to things like, and again, these are extremes, but you've got a fire or a massive flood, or suddenly some massive, a server's exploded in one of the, or whatever. It's that sort of that's really going to affect lots of people on the ground. You might have people there on Steam, on their phone, reporting back, somebody this size filling things in, etc. Appreciate running out of time, so I just wanted to touch on the second point. What I think is really important to know about this tool as well. Now, obviously, Luke's gone into a lot of detail there on various aspects, which realistically we won't even be needing to use. But what he's done is demonstrated the configurability of it, scope, and the ability to keep it current by going into all of the tasks. And this is editable, that's configurable, we can change this. Majority of this is all just defaulting to what's already been set, which has been driven from that paper-based document that we've had. So you wouldn't need to be going through all of those different blocks and everything else. You just straight onto those 5 steps, and it's going to be giving us all of the defaulted stuff. But at any point in time, if they needed to be reviewed, questions needed to be changed, context needs to be added, or that type of thing, the tool does facilitate that, and I think that's what Luke wanted to really demonstrate and clarify. But yeah, thank you both.
Thank you. Just before we finish, I just wanted to highlight some CPD resources that we've got available. Down at the bottom of the SharePoint page, we've started to list some of the CPD resources and guides and things that we've got for the various steps of the process. And I just wanted to highlight that there's this, didn't mean to do that because it's already open. We've developed a learning object which covers basically what we've covered today in this session, and we're recommending that this and there'll be one that follows as well on the actual incident management process, that they're completed once a year, just to keep the process fresh in everybody's minds, because it might be that it's not used in earnest at all within a year, perhaps. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. So it's just to keep current, and as a reference tool as well, if you ever need to refer to any of the parts of the process, then you can just dip into the course and check for whatever it is that you need. And it goes through basically what we've covered with you today, the different steps of those different stages. So that's, as I said, linked on the SharePoint page, and it's over on Moodle. Just wanted to highlight that.
Are we going to be having any opportunity, Sarah, to run this through as a scenario? Because a lot of what you've shown me today, I'm not going to take that in until I actually have hands-on and have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't expect you to remember everything that we've gone through today. It's quite a lot of steps. But yes, I think what we're thinking of doing is to run another session in September, so that you can get hands-on and we can sort of support you with that. And then that'll be before we do some full-scale testing of the whole system.
I can go and pull a few of Aid's plugs out and give a scenario.
Is that literally or metaphorically speaking?
Don't do that. We can pretend.
There's a huge amount of work. I know obviously it's gone into that, and it was good. Actually, look, it was really good to see where all the different areas are. Like if we have a different member of staff or changing your office address or a new, where that can be updated. Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. As Martin said, though, I mean, sort of, we get it all the time, don't we? When we put IT systems out on new things, like we're doing with tutor apps, for example. It just takes a lot of drip feed and a lot of usage, and a lot of you slowly get those people sort of online then with what you're trying to achieve. But yeah, it's, if you could have a a test incident to say, right, where do we go from the start to the finish? We've identified the fact that it's a disaster. The server room's gone down, or there's a flood or something. Yeah, that's what they invoke. It'd be great to run through the process of what we're doing and see some of these emails that will be coming through as well. That'd be good.
Yeah,
good.
Definitely.
Yeah, but fab, good.
Fab, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you all. I hope it's been useful. I
Yeah.
found the feedback form, so it's in the chat if you want to just quickly fill that in for us, please.
Yeah,
No problem.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Cheers all.
both.
Cheers,
Bye.
Dave.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye.